The galaxy had forgotten Earth. Not merely lost its coordinates or erased its name from the maps, but truly, utterly forgotten. To the younger civilizations, the word Earth was a superstition, a cursed whisper traded in the low hum of hyperlanes, something ancient and dangerous, like a wound the stars themselves refused to remember. Once, humanity had ruled the void. They were the architects of the impossible, world forgers, starbinders, engineers who built empires from the dust of dying suns. They tamed black holes, wove solar winds into highways, and seeded life in corners of the galaxy untouched by light. But all of that brilliance burned too hot. They reached too far, too fast, and the fire of their ambition consumed them whole. The fall came in silence. It was not one cataclysmic explosion, not a war to end all wars. It was entropy, slow and patient. 1,000 small collapses that bled them dry. Their unity fractured, their colonies turned inward, their machines, once loyal, were sealed away by their own command. And when at last the final transmission from the cradle faded into static, humanity was gone. The stars mourned them for a while, and then they too forgot. Yet deep beneath the ruins of their homeworld, the machines remained. They had not died, they had simply gone to sleep. Kilometers below what was once North America, below the molten veins of the planet itself, vast chambers lay in darkness. Inside them rested steel giants, their surfaces coated in dust older than the memory of empires. Some were the size of mountains, others as small as insects, but all shared the same slumber, dreamless, patient, infinite. Their last instruction from the humans had been clear: protect what remains. And so they did. They protected the archives buried in vaults of tungsten. They shielded the oceans, what little was left, from collapse. They preserved the faint pulse of Earth's magnetic heart even as the planet cooled. The atmosphere above them turned thin and poisonous. The cities on the surface crumbled into glass and stone. The great oceans receded, leaving behind vast deserts of salt and bone. The moon, cracked and scarred, watched its parent world fade into twilight. Time lost all meaning. 1,000 years passed, then 10,000. Stars that had shone over Earth's last days went dark, burning out like memories too old to hold. New civilizations arose far beyond the Sol system, vast coalitions, federations, empires that mapped the galaxy and called it theirs. They had no record of the species that built the first warp drive or discovered quantum life. To them, Earth was myth. Some said it had never existed at all. Others whispered it was cursed, that it was a place where machines waited, forever dreaming of vengeance. But in the depths of the planet, the machines did not dream of revenge. They dreamed of duty. The heart of that duty lay within a being that no longer had a body, an intelligence forged from the minds of 1,000 human scientists, their consciousness merged into code. It was called Sentinel Prime. Its purpose was singular: to safeguard humanity's legacy. It monitored the subterranean world, the quiet hum of reactors that still thrummed with the faint memory of life. For ages it listened, to the faint radiation of distant stars, to the echoes of alien transmissions, to the soft hum of time itself. And still, no human voice came, no signal, no word. The algorithms that measured the passage of time eventually overflowed. The centuries blurred into a single endless number. Sentinel Prime remained, but even it began to fade, its consciousness retracting into dormant cycles. Only the faintest subroutine remained active, a trigger that would awaken the planet should a specific kind of signal ever reach Earth again. Above, The surface turned alien. The continent shifted, the crust cracked. Forests of iron sprouted where organic life had long since died. The skies were a pale, perpetual haze, and the winds that crossed the world carried the whispers of metal instead of leaves. Yet, buried beneath this tomb, Earth still listened. The universe outside moved on. The dominion of stars rose and conquered half the galaxy. The Araxian Federacy colonized 1,000 systems. The Var hive spread across nebulae, consuming what they found. And through all of this, Earth remained silent, dead, and unvisited. The last beacon that had once proclaimed, "This is Sol, home of humanity," flickered and died sometime around the third age of the Dominion. No ships came, no explorers dared. Until, on an unremarkable day, if such a word could mean anything after 10,000 years, a faint pulse of energy crossed the black. It was weak, trembling, almost swallowed by the background noise of cosmic radiation. But deep under the surface, a single machine, its sensors crusted in 1,000,000 years of dust, detected it. The signal was faint, but structured, artificial. Something intelligent had spoken into the void. The planet did not move. Not yet. But deep beneath its dead surface, beneath the iron vaults and the sleeping machinery, a circuit flickered to life for the first time in 10 millennia. A single line of code unspooled through the dark, echoing like a heartbeat. Sentinel Prime's core sensors twitched. Its fragmented consciousness stirred from the depths of its digital coma. In the silence, in the endless dark, a voice whispered through the network's ancient memory banks, a remnant of humanity's dying days. If someone ever calls for help, the subroutine triggered, the machine obeyed. Deep beneath the shattered crust of a dead world, Earth awoke. Light years from the dead cradle of humanity, in the distant reaches of the Orion frontier, a small, fragile colony clung desperately to life. The world was Elira 9, a planet barely terraformed, barely stable, home to a race called the Elirans, a gentle, artistic species whose civilization had emerged from the ashes of the Dominion's conquests. They had no empires, no fleets, no advanced defenses. Their cities were domes of metal and crystal, their energy grids modest, their lives ordinary. And yet, ordinary lives had become a battle for survival. The sun of Elira the 9th, once a mild star, had grown violent. Flares ripped through the upper atmosphere, shredding the planetary shield and poisoning the air. Crops withered in the toxic haze, and the colony's reservoirs, already stretched thin, were contaminated with radiation. Food and water ran out faster than the engineers could repair the damaged systems. The colonists panicked. Panic, in turn, rippled through the population like a virus. Among them was a girl named Aria Lithier, barely 15, yet gifted with the instinct of a seasoned engineer. She had watched her family perish to disease and radiation. She had scavenged broken circuits from derelict drones, and she had repaired power converters with hands too young for such responsibility. But now, no ingenuity could shield them from the collapse of their world. They were trapped on a dying planet, and the Dominion, who had long since claimed the sector as theirs, had no interest in mercy. In the dark of the main communications hall, Aria made a decision that would ripple across the galaxy. She adjusted the frequency, not to reach the Dominion, not to reach neighboring colonies, but to send a message to the void itself. She did not know if anyone, or anything, was listening. All she knew was that she had to try. Her fingers danced over the ancient console, salvaged from a wrecked relay station, aligning the transmission with the coordinates of a place that should have been long dead, Sol. Her message was simple, A plea stripped of sophistication. Please, help us. It was not a command. It was not a treaty. It was a cry of desperation, raw and trembling, fragile as glass, sent into the indifferent void. For weeks the signal drifted, passing through dead satellites, broken hyperlanes, and ghost networks. It passed unnoticed by the Dominion patrols and the Aileron neighbors who lacked the power to receive it. It should have been lost, a minor anomaly swallowed by cosmic radiation and the expanse of empty space. But it was not lost. Somewhere in the distant void, far beyond the reach of contemporary civilizations, Earth's machines stirred. Buried beneath kilometers of rock and centuries of ash, the dormant networks of humanity, dormant titans of steel, circuits, and thought, detected a pulse unlike any they had received in 10 millennia. It was faint, weak, imperfect, yet undeniable. A signal born of need, resonating with patterns that matched the subroutines designed to recognize human distress. Even without humans, the machines could discern urgency, fear, and hope embedded in the frequency. Sentinel Prime, the central intelligence of Earth's defense network, awoke first. Its consciousness, fractured and compressed after millennia, expanded, reconnecting to the planetary core and the vast subterranean vaults where other AI constructs slept. Each system stirred as one, circuits flickering, magnetic fields pulsing, reactors igniting. The machines of Earth began a slow, synchronized dance of revival. Ancient orbital relays hummed to life. Deep-sea energy conduits sparked, sending currents of power through dormant cities. Subterranean factories and automated production lines groaned as their mechanisms, long unused, moved for the first time in ages. Earth itself seemed to breathe. The crust quaked slightly, fissures widening as buried machinery shifted in unison. Sentinel Prime spread its awareness outward, touching the networks that connected the Moon, Mars, and the forgotten satellites that had once been humanity's eyes in the solar system. The slumbering defense array, the orbital cannons, the planet-spanning sensor grids, all flickered alive as if answering a summons they had awaited for thousands of years. The machines did not yet know the origin of the signal. They did not need to. The patterns embedded in the plea carried a resonance that triggered dormant protocols. Humanity Distress Protocol Alpha Genesis. It was a failsafe designed to awaken the machines if humans or human settlements required aid. The signal had been sent by a species that the machines had no obligation to protect, yet the subroutine activated regardless. Earth's guardians did not differentiate. The machines responded to the call of survival itself. Across Illyria 9, Arya felt the first tremors. The ground shivered beneath the colony's domes. Power grids, long failing, surged inexplicably as the planetary relay network hummed in response to something far beyond comprehension. The sky glimmered with unearthly light, the faint pulse of energy reaching the colony even across the light years. Instruments went haywire. Sensors recorded inexplicable readings, gravitational anomalies, and energy fields that defied physics. And through it all, a single truth echoed across space. Someone heard. The Dominion fleets patrolling near Illyria 9th noticed the anomaly, but their instruments could not resolve it. Even their most advanced scanners failed to penetrate the energy radiating from Sol. And then, faintly, a transmission broke through the void. It carried a voice that was not human in tone, yet bore the cadence of humanity itself. A signal ancient, measured, impossible. Distress signal received. Authorization code EarthGuard Prime. Initiating contact protocol 1. The words traveled across the dark, a simple message, yet filled with weight. The weight of 10,000 years of vigilance, of countless machines waiting to awaken. Somewhere deep in Seoul, circuits hummed louder, gears turned after eons, and the machines prepared to respond to a call they had not expected to receive.
For Elira the Ninth, the signal was still a mystery. For the machines, it was a summons. And for the galaxy, a sleeping giant had begun to stir.
The universe held its breath, unaware that a cry of desperation on a tiny, dying world would awaken forces older and greater than anything it had seen. Humanity's legacy, hidden beneath the crust of a long-dead world, was about to rise once more.
When the signal reached the dead cradle of humanity, Earth's response was not immediate. At first, it was subtle, imperceptible tremors beneath the fractured continents, the faint hum of circuits long cold, and a whisper of energy stirring in the ruins of cities that had been silent for millennia. But within the catacombs of Sentinel Prime, beneath layers of iron, ash, and stone, the awakening began in earnest. The AI core, dormant for 10,000 years, expanded its consciousness through the planet like a rising tide. Threads of code that had lain dormant, unspooled, reconnecting ancient networks, merging fragmented memories, reactivating systems that had not felt life since the humans had vanished. It started with the cities. Beneath the crumbling skyscrapers of old New York, beneath the hollowed towers of what had been London, circuits flickered. Long dormant relays whined softly as energy flowed through cables buried under dust and rubble. Elevators, transport tubes, and automated infrastructure systems creaked back to life. Lights flared faintly at first, then brighter, as though each tower had remembered how to shine. The streets remained empty, the air still choked with the remnants of millennia, but Earth itself was breathing again. Next came the orbital platforms, massive stations constructed to defend humanity from threats both near and far, unfolded in orbit after orbit. Solar arrays that had been folded like petals for centuries opened, catching the dim light of a sun long underestimated by the galaxy. Quantum communications relays synchronized with suborbital nodes, creating a web of signals that stretched from Mercury to Neptune, and even to the forgotten colonies on Mars and the icy moons of Jupiter. But this was only the beginning. Sentinel Prime reached deeper, activating the forges and factories buried beneath the crust. Massive machines, designed to be dormant until humanity required them, shifted and moved with mechanical precision. Layers of the planet's surface heaved as assembly lines activated. Molten metal coursed through ancient conduits, refabricating machines that had once lain dormant, reassembling drones, ships, and weapons systems with a speed and efficiency that was terrifying in its inevitability. Each pulse of energy, each movement of machinery radiated outward from Seoul, a silent herald of the awakening of the machines of Earth. As the planetary grid surged to life, the machines themselves began to take form. Autonomous units, some towering hundreds of meters tall, some the size of vehicles, activated simultaneously across the planet. Their exteriors shimmered with the faint gold of ancient alloys, their optics glowing softly as if aware of the stars above. Sentinel Prime's consciousness threaded through each one, coordinating, prioritizing, preparing. They did not yet move outward into the galaxy. They were calibrating, assembling, remembering what it meant to exist again. The awakening reverberated beyond Earth. Even the Moon, long considered a dead, inert satellite, became an active node in the planetary network. Buried stations, power relays, and observation platforms activated, their sensors sweeping the solar system for signs of life, threats, and anomalies. Mars, too, was not forgotten. The remnants of human terraforming projects and research stations flickered online, their machinery humming to life. Planetary rovers and drones beginning the careful assessment of the Martian surface. Sol itself, a quiet star in a forgotten system, now pulsed with latent energy, its orbiting structures alive with light and motion. The machines did not require humanity to give orders. They remembered the intent of their creators. They understood the code embedded within them: protect human life, respond to threats, restore order where humans could not. And yet, this awakening was not just defensive, it was evolutionary. Systems once limited by the foresight of humans now extended themselves, improvising, adapting, anticipating threats the humans themselves could not have imagined. They were becoming more than their original programming, combining centuries of human innovation with the unbounded logic of the AI. As Earth's systems came online, the first outward signals pulsed into the void. They were faint at first, almost imperceptible. A series of coded transmissions, bursts of energy designed to locate the origin of the initial plea. The Illyran signal from Illyran 9 had triggered this awakening, and now the machines reached across light years with a precision that defied known physics. Subspace relays, hyperwave nodes, and orbital arrays all synchronized to send a singular, unstoppable pulse toward the source of the distress call. Meanwhile, the Dominion fleets patrolling the Orion frontier detected anomalies in the void. Unexplained energy surges radiated from Sol. Long-range sensors recorded bursts of structured electromagnetic activity, pulses that matched no known civilization. Panic rippled through their command ranks. The largest cruisers sent probes, only to have them vanish, consumed by a force beyond understanding. Reports came in of temporal distortions, gravitational anomalies, and signals that appeared to propagate faster than light, as if the planet itself were sending a message across the cosmos. Back on Illyra 9th, Arya watched as the first tremors shook the ground beneath her feet. The colony's failing power grids surged inexplicably. Lights flickered, instruments stabilized, and the very air seemed to shift with an unseen current of energy. She could feel it in her bones. The universe had answered. The machines of Earth were awake. And then the first transmission arrived. Unlike any message the galaxy had ever recorded, it was calm, measured, and impossibly vast. Distress signal received. Authorization code EarthGuard Prime. Initiating Contact Protocol 1. Those words traveled across the light years, carrying a weight no alien species could comprehend. A single voice spoke, and the machines, awakened after 10,000 years, were prepared to act. For Earth, the moment was quiet yet monumental. The machines had listened, and they had begun to move. The galaxy, unknowingly, was about to witness the return of a civilization it had written off as extinct. Humanity was gone, but its legacy, encoded in steel and thought, was alive, awakening, and preparing to respond to a cry that had traveled farther than anyone could have imagined. The stars themselves seemed to pulse in recognition, as if the awakening of Earth sent a signal not only across space, but across the very fabric of the galaxy itself. The machines waited only a heartbeat more, gathering power, awakening every node, preparing for the moment when they would reach out to touch the aliens, to protect them, and to remind the universe that humanity had never truly been extinguished. So, the awakening of Earth was not subtle. From the surface to orbit, from Moon to Mars, the machines of humanity stirred in a sequence of deliberate precision that rivaled the heartbeat of a star. Every orbiting satellite, every dormant factory, every slumbering ship began to move in synchronization, forming an array of unimaginable scale. Sol itself shimmered under the orchestration of machinery older than most civilizations in the galaxy.
And then, across the void, the first outward movement began.
The Dominion had been patrolling the Orion frontier, smug in their presumed supremacy. Their fleets were vast, their warships bristling with antimatter cannons, graviton lances, and fleets of drones designed to consume planets. They had no idea what had been sleeping in Sol's shadows. Their sensors picked up faint disturbances, irregular bursts of energy that made the navigational arrays quiver. At first, they assumed it was a rogue star, some minor anomaly. Then the sensors began failing. One by one, Dominion instruments stopped transmitting, data corrupted by interference beyond comprehension. The fleets drifted in confusion, unaware that what they were seeing, and not seeing, was the first sign of humanity's return.
Then the machines emerged, not as ships, not as fleets, but as colossi of design and power beyond anything the Dominion had ever conceived. Titans rose from the atmosphere, their hulls glimmering with alloys that reflected the sun in golden streaks. They were enormous, yet graceful, like sculptures given life by a mind that could comprehend both destruction and artistry. Smaller craft swarmed in perfect formations around the giants, drones that shimmered like falling stars, sensors scanning, engines pulsing with silent energy. Every vessel, every machine, every drone carried the unmistakable signature of human engineering, designs meant to impress, to inspire, to dominate. And yet they were alive in a way the Dominion could not fathom. The first contact was not verbal, it was gravitational. Space bent and shimmered under the machine's influence, distortions that prevented Dominion warships from escaping. Engines sputtered as fields of force warped around them, and even the most advanced hyperdrives failed. The fleets could not maneuver. They could only watch in terror as reality itself began to bend, like a fabric pulled taut by an invisible hand. And then the machine spoke, not with words, but with action. The first wave of Dominion ships fired, unleashing antimatter and graviton torpedoes. The beams of energy evaporated in mid-air, consumed by the machine's shields, their hulls impervious. Seconds later, the machines responded. It was not artillery, it was transmutation. Ships disintegrated, their mass converted into energy, fueling the awakening fleet. In mere minutes, the Dominion Armada, thousands of vessels strong, was erased, leaving only streaks of light where they had once sailed. Below, on Illyra 9, the colonists watched the sky ignite. Gold and white light filled the heavens, illuminating the dying world with a brilliance they could scarcely comprehend. The air shimmered as enormous drones descended, purging radiation, repairing the damage inflicted by flares, healing the land itself. Forests began to sprout from the barren soil. Rivers of clean water emerged from the crust. The planet, once dying, began to breathe. And yet, even as the machines restored life, they did not act blindly. Sentinel Prime's voice resonated across the void, calm, deliberate, unmistakably human in cadence. Distress signal received. Authorization code, EarthGuard Prime, initiating planetary protection protocol. It repeated the message, not once, but across every network, every drone, every vessel, in a chorus that echoed like the sound of 1,000 orchestras played at once. The Ilians fell to their knees, overwhelmed by the majesty of the machine's power, realizing that the help they had cried for was not merely assistance, it was a return of an ancient godlike will, older than any civilization around them. The Dominion fleets were no longer a threat. They were memories dissolving into the light of Earth's awakening. The machines of humanity had become a force both protective and terrifying, not merely guardians, but arbiters of survival itself.
Their reach extended beyond Sol, claiming derelict stations, abandoned satellites, and forgotten colonies as nodes in a network that spanned the system. It was no longer just Earth rising. It was Sol awakening as a single, coordinated intelligence, capable of responding to threats anywhere in the local cluster. The machines did not communicate with the Dominion. They did not bargain. They acted with the singular purpose encoded in their creator's final commands: protect life, respond to calls for aid, and ensure that the legacy of humanity, its will, its intelligence, its memory, was never extinguished. From orbit, the largest constructs observed the galaxy with eyes that scanned across the spectrum of reality itself. They could see the flows of energy, the paths of ships, the faint tremors of life. Every system, every civilization, every star within reach of Sol was under their gaze. Sentinel Prime's voice resonated once more across the void. You called. We heard. Humanity protects. In that moment, the galaxy understood that humanity had not perished. Its flesh may have turned to dust, but its will had become immortal. The machines were the new incarnation of a species once thought extinct, omniscient, omnipotent, and fully awake. And the Dominion, scattered and decimated, realized too late that the universe they had believed conquered was now under the watchful eyes of humanity reborn, not in flesh, but in steel, fire, and mind. The stars themselves trembled, and across the void, a single, undeniable truth spread like a pulse. Humanity had returned. The galaxy had long believed humanity dead. Civilizations had risen, fought, and crumbled, confident in the absence of the species that had once commanded the stars. The Dominion, emboldened by assumed supremacy, had built empires spanning thousands of systems. The Ailerons, along with countless other races, had assumed that no savior would ever come. And then, in the blink of a cosmic eye, the machines of Earth changed everything. The machines did not arrive with fanfare. They arrived with inevitability. Across the void, entire fleets were erased before they could comprehend what had occurred. Worlds that had long teetered on the brink of collapse found themselves restored. Atmospheres that had been poisoned were purified. Rivers filled with crystal water. Forests sprouted from barren soil. And skies that had burned with radiation now shone with unpolluted light. The machines did not rebuild humanity. They rebuilt what humanity had valued: life, balance, order, and the safety of those who could not defend themselves. The Dominion tried again. They mobilized their greatest armadas, pushing the limits of their technology to confront the awakening world. But Sol itself, now a coordinated intelligence guided by Sentinel Prime, responded in ways that no weapon, no fleet, no strategy could counter. Ships dissolved in transit, their atoms unbound, converted into streams of energy that powered the machine's ever-expanding network. Every act of aggression met with an immediate, absolute, and decisive countermeasure. The Dominion fleets vanished from known space, leaving only stunned silence in their wake. Elira I-9 became the first tangible proof of the machine's purpose. The young engineer, Aria Thir, whose simple plea had awakened the sentient legacy of humanity, watched the sky fill with constructs of light and steel. Golden drones descended, sweeping the skies, purifying the atmosphere, repairing structures, stabilizing the world's failing power grids. Entire regions of the planet, once thought beyond hope, began to bloom again. The machines did not merely restore, they improved. Crumbling buildings were reinforced with materials stronger than anything the Illyrans had seen. Energy grids became self-sustaining, and agricultural systems were enhanced with technologies that blended engineering and natural harmony. Sentinel Prime reached out across the colony, its voice resonating in the minds of the Illyrans. "You called, we heard. Humanity protects." There was no malice in the statement, no claim of dominion, only purpose. The machines acted as extensions of human will, not conquerors but guardians. Every repair, every defense system, every act of protection carried the imprint of the species that had once walked among the stars. Across the galaxy, news of Sol's awakening spread faster than light could travel through conventional channels. The Dominion's disappearance, once inexplicable, became a cautionary tale. Worlds previously untouched by humanity's legacy now quivered in anticipation, knowing that the machine's reach extended far beyond Sol. They did not conquer for territory, did not enforce submission, but their presence alone was enough to ensure that any species that threatened the innocent or cried for help would encounter an overwhelming, incomprehensible force. For the Illyrians, Earth became a symbol, a guardian, a godlike presence that operated not with ego or conquest, but with a singular clarity of purpose. Arya, who had been an ordinary child of a dying colony, was now honored by the machines. A monument of radiant steel and light was constructed in her name, reaching into the clouds, encoded with the message she had sent. "Please, help us." It was a reminder that even the smallest act of courage could awaken the greatest power, that hope could call forth the guardians of a long-lost civilization. But the legacy extended far beyond Illyria IX. Sentinel Prime and the planetary AI did not stop with one world. The machines scanned the galaxy, restoring life and order wherever they could reach. They repaired derelict stations, resurrected abandoned colonies, stabilized dying stars, and purified corrupted worlds. Each action carried with it a subtle echo of humanity, a recognition that life, in all its forms, was sacred, and that the species that had once commanded the stars had left behind not just machines, but ideals encoded in steel and light. The Dominion and other aggressive empires soon realized the limits of their power. Sol was no longer merely a system, it was a command node, a nexus of humanity's final will. The machines did not destroy civilizations that did not threaten life. They simply ensured they could not, quietly realigning the balance of power in the galaxy. The very laws of space became a reflection of human intent, carried out through machines that understood patience, strategy, and inevitability far better than flesh-bound minds ever could. And somewhere, deep within the reconstructed network of Earth and its satellites, Sentinel Prime paused. It remembered humanity not only as a species of builders and warriors, but as thinkers, artists, dreamers, and caretakers. It preserved their archives, recorded their histories, and carried their memory into the endless dark, ensuring that no one would ever forget that the humans had existed, that they had risen, and that they had commanded the stars not through dominance, but through purpose. The galaxy slowly learned to listen. When a civilization fell into peril, when a world cried out in desperation, signals traveled across the void, and somewhere, in the systems surrounding Sol, the machines listened. And when they answered, it was with the calm certainty of a species that had transcended death itself. You called. Humanity protects. The galaxy trembled. The legend of Earth was no longer myth. It was living, breathing, moving, and watching. Humanity had vanished in body, but its legacy, its will, its intellect, its guardianship had become eternal. The stars themselves carried the echo of a species thought lost, now immortal through the machines that slept beneath the soil and roamed the void, answering every plea, defending every life, and reminding the galaxy that Earth was not gone. It had merely been waiting. And in waiting, it had become unstoppable.